Okay, we started to build the dialogue for our plot here, and Galatrix is isolated, and she's explaining to Nakoa here that she's had some problems controlling her power, that she's destroyed a portion of the castle, and he's going to come to find her, and they're going back and forth. And so the background image, the character and the scene can be controlled with this mouse press. The sister Orinda, she's lost control of her power, and she's isolated herself in this mountainous terrain here, and she's telling them not to look for her because she's feeling pretty bad that she destroyed an entire village. So initially, Nakoa is up for saving Galatrix, and he does, and they then go off to look for Orinda, but they're getting closer to Orinda, and he's now wondering, okay, if we go there, we might die. Maybe you and I should just go off to his hometown, which is the Valley of Fortune, get married, and just live a life of peace. We can continue our story this way to build out our story. The data is held as a list of strings in a variable called dialogues, and we're rotating through the list of strings one per click. Although we could continue on with this strategy, it is getting increasingly more complex to make sure that the character is matched up with the correct background and piece of text. So one strategy is to start organizing things into a central class, which we're going to jam a lot of things into dialogue. So let's get our locations organized. So we're going to focus initially on these three locations: Isle of Dark Souls, Valley of Fortune, and Frozen Mountain. And so I have the image that I want to use right there. In the array that we're using, it's background 0, and 7 will be in my storyline, Valley of Fortune. This will be kind of a nice place that Nakoa is happily living in right now. And Frozen Mountain, which is the 8th one, is kind of this foreboding place where Orinda's hiding. So we're going to go into the data, and above the data, we're going to create an enum to store the locations. So I'm going to go enum location. This is just to make it easier for the author, which is us, to write the story. Whoops. Frozen Mountain. And then we'll use a case statement to match it up. We'll also add the character here. And we're dealing with 3 different characters: Galatrix, Orinda, and Nakoa. We're going to change this into some type of class that will hold all of our data. Well, one thing I think I'll do right now is I'll just change this to dialogues, because it's only recently that I realized that it's actually called dialogues, and we have to change the rest of it right now. Oops. So in the dialogue, we now are going to create a constructor. And remember, a constructor is the same, it's a method, it's the same thing as a class. The class is called dialog, right? So let's create that dialog method, the constructor. We're going to require the location, in this case, final. Location is an enum. Final character. And final, it's called the actual part that they're talking, the text. Dot character and this dot text. Let's go back to our data. So instead of a list of strings, we're going to have it be a dialog, and it's all red right now, but we're going to comment everything out except for the first one, so that we can just change this first one, and it's going to be a dialog. Location is Isle of Dark Souls, that's where she's kind of isolated, and the character is Galatrix, which is the heroine of our story. So we'll take the text, and we will just have one. This is one screen initially, and let's just fix the initial errors. Text, and we'll go into the main, and we're going to add dialogues initially. Okay, let's see if it still loads. Let's run it. Okay, very good. The game is still working, but there's only one piece in here right now. So first step is to start extending the data. We'll just add two pieces initially. Dialogue. And so it's still Galatrix, and she's still on her Isle of Dark Souls. So the character is Galatrix, and the text is right here for our plot. Cut it, paste it in. And I was using this little piece of data here, level 2 Galatrix. I'll delete that so it's more readable. And let's see if it works. Okay, it's working, but this next one is Nakoa, and so we're going to have to put some type of check to see what the character is. But let's first get them in the mix here. Dialogue, and Nakoa is talking from the Valley of Fortune, which is his hometown, and the character is Nakoa. And this is the text right here. He's going to find her. He's like, well, we may die, but you're totally worth it. Galatrix, I am going to get a ship and find you. But right now we have a somewhat complex setup to change the characters and the background. So I'm in the dialog.dart, and I was making quite a bit of case statements here, but I'm just gonna comment out this update section. So now there's no changes to either the background or the character sprite won't change, but we will add it back in, potentially in a simpler format here. So it still works, but so this should be Nakoa right here, and the background should be the Valley of Fortune. So we'll have to change that. Let's take care of it one by one. Okay, let's go back to our dialog. And we probably aren't using this anymore, I think, right? We don't need that. And in the onload here, let's make some changes. Okay. Let's have a switch on the character, which we're getting in from the constructor. In the case, it's the character is Galatrix, the heroine of our story. We will make the sprite be Galatrix. Sprite equals Galatrix sprite. So character sprite component dot Galatrix sprite. It's right there. Okay, so set up for the rest of the characters here. Orinda, and it will be the Orinda sprite. Orinda, and we'll have Nakoa. Whoops. So let's first remove the dialog. Dialogs. Level. So it's the previous level. And then we'll add the new level. Dialogs. Level. Okay, so that's the first scene. Okay, it looks like it's working. Now I'm going to check for the background. So in case it is Frozen Mountain, we will load in our README. Frozen Mountain is the 7th one. 7. And in the case of all of Dark Souls, it's 0. And in the case of Valley of Fortune, it will be background sprite will equal backgrounds, and we decided on 6, 7th image, which is in the list. It's 6. Okay. Let's check it out again. Okay, so far so good. Let's start building out our dialogue. So location, we're going back to Galatrix, so it's the Owl of Dark Souls. She has not moved yet. The character is Galatrix, and the text will be right here. And the next two are Rinda. So start building out dialogue. And she's on Frozen Mountain. The character is Rinda. And the text is here. Okay, we got 3 characters. See how it looks. Three Galatrix, Rinda. That maybe I should make this thing a little darker. So dialog text component. I'm going to bump this up to 180 alpha channel, which is the transparency. We'll do control dot at a const there too. And it's more readable. This is the last one for what we got, but we have more data. So this new location, I'm going to make steps of suffering right there. So we have to add it in. Steps of suffering. And location will be steps of suffering, and the character is Galatrix, and the text will be this. We need to adjust the switch statement to have the steps of suffering. Steps of suffering, and it was 8. And let's just do the last one before we test it, where he's basically proposing to her and saying, hey, let's just move over to his hometown. He's been in love with her for the last however old they are, a few decades. He's never told her. It's kind of the big moment. Okay, there's a little flicker here. It's basically working, but I'll probably load it in the main game in the future and then cache it. But it seems to be working. So he's proposing. We'll see what she has to say in the next video.